In 2003, scientists broke hearts inside an MRI machine, and the brain scans showed something nobody expected. The exact same region that lights up when your body registers a broken bone lit up when a person simply felt left out of a game. Why does rejection feel like physical pain? Not metaphorically, not just in your imagination. We're talking about your actual nervous system, reacting to a breakup, a snub, a slammed door, the same way it reacts to a burn or a bruise. Let's set the rules first. We're not talking about sadness in general. We're talking specifically about social rejection, being excluded, dumped, ignored, or cast out. And we're asking one narrow question. Does that experience use the same pain circuitry your body built to protect you from physical injury? Stick around, because the answer rewrites what heartbreak actually is. Let's start with the moment this idea became science instead of poetry. Picture a college student lying still inside a brain scanner. She's holding a small controller, playing a simple game of catch with two other players she can see on a screen. The ball goes back and forth. Nothing dramatic. Then, without warning, the other two players stop throwing to her. They just keep tossing the ball between themselves. She's still lying there, still holding the controller, still technically playing, but she's been cut out. Here's the twist she didn't know. The other two players weren't real people. They were part of the experiment. The whole point was to engineer a small, clean moment of social exclusion and watch what her brain did in response. This was the cyberball experiment, designed by psychologist Kipling Williams and studied inside the scanner by neuroscientist Naomi Eisenberger at UCLA. What her team found, published in the journal Science, changed how researchers talk about emotional pain. The moment players got excluded, a region called the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex lit up. That's the same region that activates during physical pain, not a nearby region, not something similar. Overlapping circuitry. So your brain doesn't file left out of a game under sadness the way we assumed. It files it, at least partly, under injury. That raises an obvious question, though. Isn't this just a coincidence of brain wiring? Two systems that happen to share a neighborhood, doing unrelated jobs? That's where the story escalates. Because if rejection genuinely borrows the pain system, then things that dull physical pain should, at least a little, dull emotional pain too. That sounds almost too strange to test. Researchers tested it anyway. Psychologist C. Nathan DeWall ran a study where participants took either a placebo or a common over-the-counter painkiller, acetaminophen, every day for 3 weeks. They tracked their hurt feelings daily, using a simple self-report scale, rating how much rejection or exclusion had stung that day. By the end of the study, something measurable happened. The group taking the painkiller reported significantly less social pain than the placebo group, less sting from being ignored, less ache from feeling left out. Then DeWall's team went further. They put a smaller group directly into a brain scanner while showing them rejection-themed images after those same weeks on the regimen. The painkiller group showed reduced activity in that same dorsal anterior cingulate region compared to the placebo group. A pill built for headaches and sore joints was quieting the neural signature of feeling excluded. Let's sit with how strange that actually is. We don't usually think a stomach and headache medication could touch a broken heart. But if the pain system genuinely doesn't fully distinguish between a slammed door and a slammed elbow, then of course something built to dampen one might bleed into the other. Here's where the science gets even more specific, and even more personal. Psychologist Ethan Cross wanted to know if this held true for something rawer than a video game. Not exclusion from strangers in a lab, but real heartbreak. He recruited people who had gone through an unwanted romantic breakup within the past 6 months. People who described the split as genuinely painful, the kind that still stung when they thought about it. Inside a scanner, he showed them two very different things and compared how their brains responded to each. First, a photo of their ex-partner, while they thought specifically about being rejected by that person. Second, a physically painful stimulus, a warm probe pressed against their forearm, calibrated right at the edge of what's tolerable. The results, published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, showed overlapping activation between looking at the ex-partner's photo and feeling the physical heat. And this wasn't limited to the emotional layer of pain. Regions tied to the raw sensory experience of pain itself, the part of the brain that tracks where on your body something hurts and how intensely, responded to a photograph nearly the same way they responded to actual heat on skin. Read that again. A picture triggered sensory pain circuitry. Not just "this makes me sad" circuitry, the kind of circuitry that tracks physical damage. Participants weren't imagining an ache. Their brains were running something closer to an actual pain response, triggered by nothing more than a face on a screen and a memory attached to it. So why would evolution build it this way? Why would your brain treat a breakup like a burn? Here's the reveal. Pain, in general, isn't really about tissue damage. It's an alarm system. Its entire job is to say, something threatens your survival, stop what you're doing, and fix this now. For most of human history, being cast out of your group wasn't an inconvenience you could shrug off. It was closer to a death sentence. No tribe meant no shared food, no protection from predators, no help raising children, no defense if you got sick or hurt. A human alone on the ancient savannah was a human who often didn't survive long, and evolution runs on exactly that kind of brutal math. So researchers now describe something called the social pain overlap theory. Instead of evolution building an entirely new alarm just for social exclusion, it appears to have repurposed an ancient one. The physical pain network, already wired to scream, "This is an emergency," at the first sign of injury, got pointed at loneliness too, because for most of our history, loneliness was just as dangerous as a wound. A cut could heal in days. Losing your group could kill you slowly, over weeks, through starvation, exposure, or a predator nobody was there to warn you about. That's the twist. Heartbreak isn't a metaphor your language happened to invent. It's an old survival alarm, recruited for a newer kind of threat, one your body still can't fully tell apart from the original. And that explains something almost everyone has felt but never had language for. Why an insult can make your chest physically tighten. Why grief after a breakup can arrive with actual fatigue, appetite changes, and body aches, not just low mood. Why being excluded from a group chat, something with zero physical stakes at all, can still trigger a flinch completely disproportionate to what actually happened. It even shows up in how we talk without noticing. We say a comment stung. We say news hit us like a punch. We say we're hurting over someone who left. For centuries, people assumed that was just figurative language, a poetic way of borrowing physical words for emotional weather. The scanners suggest something stranger. The language might be accurate. Not a metaphor at all, but a fairly literal report from a brain that genuinely can't fully separate the two experiences. Here's the modern mirror, and it's a strange one. We live in a world engineered for social feedback every few minutes. Likes, replies, read receipts, seeing an invitation happen in real time without being part of it. Each one is a tiny cyberball game, a small chance to feel thrown the ball or to feel the toss quietly continue without you. Your ancient alarm system, built over millions of years for tribes and campfires, doesn't know the difference between a Stone Age exile and an unanswered text. It fires the same circuitry either way, dozens of times a day, in a world your ancestors never designed it for. Understanding this doesn't make rejection painless. It won't stop the sting the next time someone doesn't text back. But it does something almost as useful. It tells you the pain is not a personal weakness, a sign of fragility, or an overreaction you should be embarrassed by. It's a functioning alarm, doing exactly what millions of years of evolution built it to do. The ache is real, measurably and physically real, sitting in the same networks that respond to a burn or a broken bone. So the next time someone tells you to just get over a rejection, remember what the scanners actually show. Your brain isn't being dramatic. It's running the oldest protection system it has, and it never got the memo that being left out of a group chat isn't the same as being left outside the tribe. Which brings us back to where we started. Scientists broke hearts inside an MRI machine, and the scans didn't lie. Rejection doesn't just feel like physical pain. In the parts of your brain built to keep you alive, it practically is.